I'm good to go.
Teresa. Yep.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining me today for this presentation. I asked for 40 minutes, but I'm not sure if I'm going to go for the whole 40 minutes. I just didn't, when I have less time, I talk really fast. So I wanted to make sure I didn't talk fast. So I asked for 40 minutes. So I'm thinking about 30 minutes for my presentation and about 10 minutes for discussion and questions at the end, or you can, like Chris said, you can interrupt me anytime you want. So like she said, I go by Terry. My name's Terry Burke. I'm a professor at Dutchess Community College. I want to start by giving you a little bit of background about my experience with OER. So in the beginning, my OER journey, I started teaching at Dutchess Community College in 2014. I moved here from Massachusetts and I started working at Dutchess. My course load included a Bio 030, which is Introduction to Biology. And this is like a free nursing course. So students take a placement test and they're placed into one of three classes. The developmental course, which is Bio 030, is a non-credit course, and they're placed there if they score poorly on the placement test. And they don't receive credit like most developmental courses in our programs. Then if they do a little bit better on the test, they get placed into Bio 130, which they do receive credit, but it doesn't count towards the nursing program. And then if they do well on the test, they get placed into this class called Bio 131, which is their first anatomy and physiology class. So what we've seen in the Bio 030 developmental course, it has a super high failure rate. So about 60% of the students pass. We offer 10 sections roughly in the fall with 20 students in each class. So that's about 200 students. So when I got there and I saw these students were failing and the materials they were provided were very expensive. So we had a tailored Pearson textbook for the course along with the lab manual. So it came as a package. So the students had to buy them together and it was $120 for this. And we noticed through the data that students that failed the first time this course tend to take it 3 times. And so they would have to buy this textbook and lab manual 3 times because they needed a fresh lab manual every time they took the course. And I'm like, that's crazy. These students are paying so much money and they're retaking this course. I want to change this. So I wrote a laboratory manual for the course and I showed it to my president, and my president's like, oh, why don't you make this OER if you're having it free for the students? And that's the first time I was introduced to OER and what it was. And then I went to the Achieving the Dream conference in 2017. I heard David Wiley speaking about how he's using OpenStax and using open pedagogy to help the students understand and get a better in-depth learning of the subject. And I was like, woohoo, I'm hooked. OER is amazing. So that brings us to how this whole journey of sustainability happened at Dutchess. It was kind of a perfect storm of goodness. And I say perfect storm of goodness twice in this presentation because it was really these colliding of initiatives at once that really has made our program really successful at Dutchess Community College. So as most of you know, that in 2017, 2018, Governor Cuomo gave the SUNY CUNY system $8 million to develop OER courses that were basically high enrolled or general education courses. I can't remember the amount of money that we were allotted for each course conversion, but it was something. So we ended up getting this pool of OER money for converting courses. But at the same time at Dutchess, contractually, our president worked out with the faculty that we would get 150 hours of release time every year for 5 years where we could do some innovative curriculum development. So while the OER initiative was going on, many of the faculty received release time to develop OER in their courses. So it was this perfect collision or coinciding of these initiatives at once. So release time is, I teach the Bio 030, which has 5 contact hours. So I would apply for 5 contact hours of release time. So instead of teaching, I was actually given time off to develop my initiative. Or for example, if I wanted to teach my load, I could actually take that 5 hours of contact time and get paid for it at $1,300 per contact hour. So it's either money or release time, depending upon what you wanted. So a lot of OER got developed during this time. And in 2018 and 2019, that's when they were SUNY OER initiative with contacting faculty members and asking them to be faculty champions and go around to different SUNY colleges and explain their journey to different colleges and how they got into OER and what they developed. So in this time period, not only did I do the lab manual, but I made an OER textbook that aligned with the OER lab manual for Bio 030. I also did some OER learning modules that were on Blackboard at the time for my students that consisted of pre-test, some OER activity, and then a post-test for them. And collaboratively, me and two other professors did the textbook for Bio 103, which is our non-science major course. And I went through SUNY Press to get both of these textbooks published. So those are the covers of the two textbooks, and they look amazing. The students have access to them electronically through our learning management system, but they also can purchase these two textbooks at a reduced cost. I think they're each $25. And if you want, you can look them up on SUNY Press, they're there. So I went around and I was talking to people about the OER development because I think it's such a super important initiative, especially at a community college. Next. There we go. Oops, I think I went too far. Yeah, there we go. So next, we were asked to join the SUNY OER Sustainability Cohort Initiative. There was Dutchess, along with 15 other schools, some of you might have participated in that, joined the SUNY OER Sustainability Cohort. So what are we going to do when the SUNY funds go away, and how are you going to make OER sustainable on our college? So through participation in this cohort, we were required to have some deliverables. One was the OER guidelines for our institution. So when we attended these meetings throughout the 2 years of the sustainability cohort, they gave us some templates that we could pull pieces from to make our own guidelines for our college. We had to make a pitch deck, like how to sell it to administration so they see how useful and beneficial OER is for our students. We had to develop an infographic, which you see on the left. We also had to do financial forecasting, which in science, I have never done anything like that. So I found that part extremely challenging, but they had this group come in called the RPK group that helped us with the forecasting. And then we had to devise a sustainability plan. So for us, I did this with the director of the library. There was two in the process. We had Kathy Carl and then Bonnie Gallagher were both part of the cohort with me from Dutchess. And we decided that we needed to have buy-in from our community. We had to have it part of the shared governance process. So to do that, we had to establish a sustainability cohort, a sustainability committee. And we also thought we needed some way of funding. Through the literature, it says that two of the things that stop or cause faculty to hesitate for OER adoption are time and funding. So we figured if we get the funding, a nice funding for these faculty that are really putting a lot of effort into OER development, then maybe we can make this sustainable at our college. So we presented this to our administration. We presented the pitch deck, and they were all on board with the $5 SUNY fee. So our $5 OER fee. So all students each semester are charged a $5 fee, and it goes into the pool of OER funding, which faculty then can apply for the funding and get paid for their OER development. So the formation of the committee, we got the committee together in 2020, 2021. We weren't sure really where OER belonged in our institution. Should it be its own committee, or should it be a subcommittee of an existing committee? So after long conversations and talking to several people, we decided that we were going to make an OER subcommittee of a standing committee called the Committee of Student Learning and Assessment. So there was a group of faculty, there was a group of support staff, and then there was the director of the library that were part of the subcommittee for OER sustainability. So within the subcommittee, we modified the guidelines that we established during the sustainability group. So we modified our guidelines together to really align it with our goals and vision at Dutchess. We defined what OER was for our institution. We basically took UNESCO's definition of OER, and we just incorporated it into our guidelines. And we designed an application process for OER funding. So with that $5 fee, we have a pool of money, and it's a pretty substantial pool. pool. It's about $25,000 each year we get that's added to the pool of money we have for OER. So faculty will apply for funding, and we have 2 application periods a year. We have one in the fall for work to be completed by the spring, and then we have an application period in the spring for work to be completed by the end of the next fall semester. So faculty can decide when to apply, and basically my role is to guide them to see if they have enough hours, because you think OER is going to be short or only a few hours, and then when you really get into the meat of OER, you see, oh, this is going to take me a lot longer than the hours I thought. So I help them through that process, and I also we give hours for training. So if this is their first time experiencing OER, they need training. So we use the SUNY training modules for that, and we also pay them for their time that they need for training. Okay. So next steps. So in 2022 to present, after we established through the subcommittee and we finished the charge of establishing the guidelines in the application, we also received a Title III grant from the grant through the state, I believe, or federal government. And part of that was for re-envisioning our teaching and learning center. So we thought that through the Teaching and Learning Center, OER should be a part of that. So instead of being a subcommittee, it really should be part of the Teaching and Learning Center. So we made positions called Faculty Innovator, and my position in the Teaching and Learning Center is the Faculty Innovator for OER and online hybrid pedagogy. So I work with the librarian directly. We review applications for funding. I have a bunch of workshops I run every year for faculty to educate them on OER. So some of the workshops I run are what is OER and how do I get funding? OER peer shares, so where people have developed OER, we come together and we talk about the process, the goods, the bads, the ugly, how it worked for them, the time they used, what tools they used to develop their OER. We had workshops on Pressbooks. We had Ed Beck come and give us a couple of presentations, and we used the funding from our OER sustainability fee to pay for those things. We have open educational pedagogy, which right now I'm currently working on my PhD, and I'm implementing an open pedagogical curriculum this semester to see if that increases student learning. And OER accessibility. So we had our accessibility director come in and helped us make all of our OER accessible. And that's part of our application, that they have to do an accessibility check with our accessibility coordinator after they design OER to make sure it's accessible for all students. We also used some of the funding this summer to do an accessibility workshop for OER. So we had, I came in and I spoke about what OER is and how to get funding and how to apply. And then our accessibility coordinator came in and explained how to make a document accessible. So she did a really great presentation on like how a screen reader reads a PDF opposed to a Word doc, and where you might run into roadblocks with your accessibility. So it was really great. And again, we used all the funds, well, we used some of the funds from that pool of money to pay faculty to come over the summer. And in our contract, it's a $40 an hour fee that we pay faculty for attending those things. So since we have the TLC, now we've taken the OER and we dissolved the subcommittee, and now it's just resided in our TLC. So I'm sure that you all, since you're part of the SUNY system, we did this cumulative savings for our students every year by incorporating OER into our classrooms. And this is based on SUNY's calculation that the average student pays $100 per textbook, and we add this year over year. So with our SUNY, since we've taken on the OER initiative, we have 495 OER sections with about 8,280 students taking these OER courses. This is a total savings of last year of $922,000. And it brings the cumulative savings to more than $4.1 million. So it's a pretty good savings since we've picked up since we picked up OER at our school. Getting a little hesitation on advancing my slide. There we go. Okay, so these are all the projects that we have launched since we actually put that $5 fee and we created the subcommittee, and now it's in the TLC. These are the courses that have gotten funded since 2022 to 2024. We actually had a 35% increase in OER offerings since the first year of the sustainability program. So you can see there's a tremendous amount of diversity in the courses that have been now implemented as OER. So I think it's really important to have this be a faculty-driven initiative, because they really help the faculty with their applications and what they can do with their curriculum. So all of these are courses that are being offered as OER. And another good thing about our sustainability program, unlike when we first got funded through SUNY, you had to have high enrolled classes and classes that were general education. Now, since it's in-house funding, a class that only has 15 students in it can be converted to OER. So for example, the Portuguese 101, Craig Stokes has developed a Portuguese OER, but the class was canceled for 2 semesters because of low enrollment. This semester, he's running the course with 15 students in it, and he still got funding even though the course wasn't running, because we want as many of our course offerings to be OER. So these are the ones that are currently under that umbrella of that $5 student fee that we enabled. So where are we now? We're collecting applications for funding in both the fall and spring semesters, as I mentioned. We have 4 applications so far this fall, and one of the applications is for revision. One of the things that the sustainability cohort was talking about is revision. So yeah, it's great that we all went on board and started incorporating OER, but as in any textbook, there needs to be revisions as, you know, more information is changed or more knowledge is gained. So we have funding for revisions, and one of our applications right now is for a revision of a lab manual. We're updating guidelines to make sure it aligns with what our current goals are with OER. We're looking at creating an OER general education pathway for students. I saw that somebody is presenting on that later today, so I want to go and see what their general education pathway looks like. But we're going to try to market students for this and say, okay, if you're in general education, you could take a pathway that is all OER, and you'll save X amount of dollars doing this pathway. So we're looking into establishing that. I think I'm just like 1 course short of having all courses in that pathway OER. So I'm going to target that instructor, those instructors, to make sure that we have all the 1 course that fits into that. And we're implementing open educational pedagogy. As I mentioned, I'm going to be implementing that this semester in my Bio 030 classes, where the students are going to be creating curriculum, and I'm going to incorporate what they create into the lab manual. So they'll actually be editors on the lab manual I have for Bio 030 to give them a more rich learning experience in that course. So for benefits to our institution for having the funding is like I mentioned, the low enrolled courses receive funding. So it doesn't matter what the course is or how often it runs. If it's good for the students, we're going to fund that. Modifications and revisions are funded. Like I mentioned, we have new additions, so people have to modify and update things. We have the DIESJ initiative and funding are funded. That means like gender neutral terminology is changing. So for example, I'm in science. So in our biology text, one of our applications was for anatomy course, where instead of saying female and male gonads, the person has changed the terminology in her textbook to say sperm producing organ or egg producing organ, to be more inclusive of the LGBTQAI+ community. So we have funding for that. External conferences and workshops are covered. So if you want to go across country and see what they're doing in California and their OER, we can send people for workshops to go and see what's going on nationally. We have the internal summer workshops are funded that I mentioned before, with the accessibility training and a whole bunch of people coming together to talk about OER. And we have guest speakers that are funded as well. So we have all this fund in this pool just dedicated to OER. And so we can do a lot of creative things with that. There's three major reasons why I believe that our program is so successful, and it's supported through literature, that we have administration that is really supportive. So in the time I've been here, we're on our third president. So the first president was the one that implemented the innovative educator program, where it gave us release time, where we did a lot of the OER adoption at that time. Then we transitioned to a second president that had us get involved with the sustainability cohort. And now we have this third president who, through the Title III, is allowing me to do this OER work through our Teaching and Learning Center. So administrative support, I think, is a crucial piece to this. And then when we did the pitch deck to them and presented this to the president, she brought it to the Board of Trustees, and the Board of Trustees said right away, okay, that $5 fee sounds perfect. I mean, we had to work that out a little bit. We had some coding problems at the beginning where people that were taking OER courses, OER designated courses, were getting charged $5 multiple times. So for example, if a student took 3 courses that were OER, they were being charged $15. And we're like, no, that's not how it's supposed to be. It's because our coding wasn't working right. So we got that all streamlined. So now all students just get paid, just get charged that $1, that one-time $5 fee in the fall, and then again in the spring. So they were all on board. So I think that's one of the most important things, because, you know, as administration changes, initiatives change, and the OER initiative has been steadfast. It hasn't been interrupted, even though we've had so many administrative changes. It's faculty driven. Like, I am the faculty co-lead with the librarian, and I'm the one who's running the workshops, and we're having the peer shares where we all talk about it. So I think it's really important that it's faculty driven. Even the subcommittee of the CSLA was faculty based, and we made the guidelines. We got the guidelines approved through the governance process. So it's really important to be faculty driven for our campus, at least. And we have faculty buy-in. Faculty are getting on board, and they see how important the OER initiative is to our students, and especially for our socioeconomically disadvantaged students. It's really important because literature shows that if they have to choose by buying a textbook or getting some food, they'll not buy the textbook, and they'll be at a disadvantage with that. But again, most of our resources are available electronically. That's what's so great about OER. We have the peer share communities, as I mentioned before, that we can all share what's going on with the OER, and then the word spreads. And I'm like a little nuisance. I'll contact people directly and be like, hey, why don't you come to my workshop? So I'm really like aggressive of getting people to be part of the OER community. And I always have treats, because food is always important for people to show up. And we provide the financial support, and we're pretty lenient with deadlines. So even though I said like fall, they'll put in their application and it's supposed to be due by spring, if they need a little extra time, we'll give them extra time, as long as they communicate that with us. Also, if they underestimate the number of hours it takes them to complete a project, we let them submit an additional proposal for additional payment. So if they did work over, like I said, you get in the weeds with OER. So you're like looking at one thing, and then you change your mind and you go to a different resource and you put it together. So we have that for them. And all of our projects are so diverse. We have people writing OER from scratch to people remixing and redistributing different OER sources. So we have a variety that we offer at our college, and it's really, really a great program. And I think that by us having this program, that OER will be sustainable at Dutchess in the future. Even if I'm not here and somebody else takes my role as the faculty lead, I think will be a great program, because it's so sturdy. And that's all I have. So I did go quick. It was 25 minutes. Does anyone have any questions or comments, or like to share their sustainability stories at their colleges? Because I'd like to take information from others as well. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Teresa. Thanks. That was really great. I'm curious to hear how people have reacted to the $5 charge I mean, it seems like a very like mild and, reasonable amount. But I'm just curious how people were reacting to it.
Yeah, we got no pushback from anybody, except when we had that little hiccup where people were getting charged for taking OER courses. So the hiccup where if you're taking 3 OER courses, you were charged $15. That was the very first time we implemented that. And then once we worked that out, we have received no pushback from that. And it's been great. So we have this like big fund. Like I'm trying to get so many people involved because we have so many funds for this.
And just as a quick follow-up,
Yeah.
what's the funding situation like for SUNY with the OER state grant? I'm at CUNY, I'm at LaGuardia Community
Okay.
College, and so I'm not fully up to date on what's happening at SUNY.
Yeah, I'm not sure at this point, since we do our independent funding, of where we are with the SUNY grant money. I just know we have that big bank of money that we were getting from the original conversions, and we used most of that. And now most of our funding is just our independent money that we get. Any more questions? Does anyone else have a sustainability program going that is different or similar to what we have?
Looks like you have a comment in the chat from Mark Matson. It says, I really appreciate the $5 fee idea. I just passed it along internally at SUNY Poly. Do you find OER as truly open resources or just resources that are free to the students? I have developed resources that are not technically OER, but I provide to the students for free.
Great question. We were talking about that in our guidelines. Do we want it just to be reduced cost or OER? Right now it's OER, so it's all openly licensed or in the public domain where we obtain the sources. So that's what we're using as our definition. But I know different institutions have different definitions of what their reduced cost courses would be, including OER. So it would be a broad reduced cost courses, and then they would have OER under that umbrella. Right now, we just have it as OER, which would be openly licensed or the public domain.
And Beth indicates, thank you for sharing your model. It looks great.
Thanks, Beth. I love it. It's really great to hear the faculty speak about their work and share where they had downfalls, where they had uplifts. It's really good to have a community of learners talking about how they develop it, and then hearing other people that haven't experienced OER, listening to people discuss that, I think really increases faculty buy-in.
Mark has a follow-up question. Thanks. Do you have a link to the policy at DCC? If we want to model a similar policy at SUNY Poly, it would be great to have a starting point.
Sure, I can share that. We just updated the guidelines. I'm actually in the process of doing that. So we have a TLC link that I can share with you that has the old guidelines, but we did update them. So I can send you directly, Mark, the new guidelines if you'd like. Let me just get the link to the old ones. And I'll put it in the chat.
It would be helpful too. They are at SUNY Brockport. Beth also asked, do your faculty innovators at the TLC have course releases?
Yes, yep, we have course release time. We get 3 hours of release time to be the faculty innovators each semester. We're still under the TLC, the Title III grant. So hopefully that the college will incorporate these positions into the budget once that grant funding ends. But I think we have 2 more years of the grant funding for these positions. But for the OER one, I would think that the OER fund bank could be used to fund the faculty release for that. Let's try to find a little link for you to share. we were having a problem having an outward facing website, so we made it ourselves for the TLC. But here it is. Oops, I think I direct messaged Chris instead of the whole group. So the guidelines, and I think that you should be able to see some projects. I was trying to link the projects to that the other day, and I was having a hard time linking some of the proposals, but I can also share some of the proposals as well with that.
Teresa, do you want to put your contact information in the chat so people can email you directly?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yep. Good idea, Chris. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any more questions for Teresa, for Terry? Oh, it looks like Barry has one.
Hi, I'm Barry Bailey. I'm from out of state, Johnson County Community College, Overland Park, Kansas. One of the things that I thought was really interesting at the very onset of your presentation was targeting a class with a 60% pass rate.
Mhm.
In our strategic plan right now, we have the initiative of targeting classes with high DFW rates for possible intervention. And I say possible because, of course, open access campus at a community college, we are going to have classes that are inevitably by design or initiative or chance weed out classes.
Mhm.
And I thought that was a really interesting point that I can't believe I haven't considered before, was both having to buy things and then also with manuals, even if you retake the course and have the book, having to buy it again. So I guess what I'm kind of wondering, it's less sustainability and maintenance and more sustainability and retention. If you've done any work with high DFW courses, and perhaps you mentioned I missed it, sorry if I did, but in targeting those courses for possible intervention, not for, hey, fix your DFW rates, but in, hey, this is a way to make them more sustainable for students that may want to repeat.
Right. No, that's a great question, because that's what they consider this course, is like a weed out course for the nursing, you know, so unfortunately, students have a high failure rate. I haven't done the analysis of whether the OER has made a difference. I did it prior to the implication of the OER in that class. But with the research I'm doing this semester with actually open educational pedagogy, where the students create the open educational resource themselves, I am going to do statistical analysis on that to see if it does have success for these students, to see if it actually changes the DFW rate. Well, our students have to get a C to pass on to the next class. So basically DFW would apply to them, and see if this implication of the OER would actually work. So I'll have more statistics after the semester.
Oh, great stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Terry? All right.